Ivan Demjanjuk, accused of being involved in the murder of some 29,000 Jews in a Nazi death camp during the Second World War, has been deported from the US to Germany. The 89-year-old says he was a Red Army soldier and a prisoner of war. But papers dating back to World War II suggest otherwise. Paula Slayer has more.
With a passion for digging out the truth, Alexander Goldsecker is a documentary producer who spent the past few years making a film about suspected Nazi war criminal Demjanjuk. But a decade and a half after Israeli courts acquitted him, Alexander is still trying to find out who this man really is. And the news that he's now been extradited to Germany doesn't bring him any closer to the truth.
I believe this man is not Demjanjuk at all, but he has his reasons for disguising himself as Demjanjuk. He has something to hide. He doesn't have the same dialect as people in the area Demjanjuk came from. There are many missing facts that make you think, who really is this man?
And that's exactly what Israelis have been asking themselves ever since the late 70s, when the US Justice Department accused this American citizen of being the Nazi guard known as Ivan the Terrible. They revoked his citizenship and extradited him to Israel. In 1988, he was convicted there and sentenced to death. Yes, the courts ruled, this was the man personally responsible for sending some 29,000 Jews to the gas chambers. But 5 years later, they said no. Israel's Supreme Court reviewed the case and acquitted him because of a lack of evidence.
What happened in Israel in the early 90s is that they didn't investigate the case enough. If they knew they were getting Ivan the Terrible, they should have made sure he was Ivan the Terrible. Once it couldn't be proven beyond all doubt that he couldn't be tried for something else, because the US had sent him only to be tried as Ivan the Terrible.
Israeli authorities were left with no choice but to set him free.
Since Israel couldn't prove that he was Ivan the Terrible, they have to send him back to the United States. In the United States, they discovered that he made a false declaration when he had applied for citizenship. They nullified his citizenship. Germany decided also to request the extradition of Demjanjuk on the basis of the accusation that he is a criminal of war that committed atrocities, not precisely in the same camp of concentration in which the Israelis thought he was active as a very terrible, but in another concentration camp.
Most Israelis are still angry that the courts were unable to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Demjanjuk was the man who eyewitnesses say sliced off the breasts of women inmates with bayonets and once ordered a prisoner to rape a 12-year-old girl.
It doesn't matter how old a person is, justice needs to be served.
There are things that man does in his past that no matter how many years have passed or how things changed, he should be put on trial for them.
But still, for some, justice is important no matter how late it is in coming.
We see great importance in this trial anyway, and certainly for future generations there is a moral worth and educational value in bringing Nazi criminals to justice.
It's not clear what new evidence, if any, German prosecutors will bring to the table, but they believe they can do something the Israeli courts couldn't: charge this man with crimes against humanity.
Demjanjuk will stand trial in Munich, although his friends and family say he's too ill to appear in court. Demjanjuk has always maintained his innocence.
He says he was drafted into the Red Army in 1941. He says a year later he became a prisoner of war in German camps until 1944. Perhaps this trial, 16 years on since the last one, will finally close the story. Paula Slayer, RT.